Welcome to the Eat This Book podcast. I'm Michael Whitworth. Each day we take a small piece of scripture and we sit with it. Not a quick snack that disappears before lunch, not a chore you check off of a list, but rather a meal meant to be savored. So pull up a chair. Let's eat. The same night he arose. Jacob has done everything he can think of. He's prayed the most honest prayer of his life. He's sent wave after wave of gifts toward Esau, hundreds of animals, a fortune in livestock, hoping to soften his brother's heart before they meet face to face. He's divided his family into camps, preparing for the worst. He's calculated every angle, worked every scheme, exhausted every option. And now it's night, and he can't sleep, and 400 men are still coming. So he rises. He takes his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 sons. He sends them across the ford of the Jabbok, a river whose name sounds like the Hebrew word for wrestle. They cross in the darkness, along with everything he owns. And then Jacob is alone. For the first time since he left Bethel 20 years ago, Jacob is truly by himself. No Laban to scheme against, no wives competing for his attention, no flocks to manage, no servants to direct, no children to protect. Just Jacob, in the dark, on the wrong side of the river, waiting for dawn, waiting for Esau, waiting for whatever comes next. It's the loneliest night of his life. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day, out of nowhere. There's no introduction, no explanation, no warning, just a man wrestling all night long. Who is this? Well, the text doesn't say, not yet anyway. Jacob doesn't know, not yet. All he knows is that someone has grabbed him in the darkness and they are fighting, grappling, struggling, hour after hour through the long watches of the night until the sky begins to lighten in the east. This is not a vision. This is not a dream. This is physical, violent, exhausting combat. Jacob has wrestled his whole life, wrestled with Esau in the womb, wrestled for the birthright, wrestled for the blessing, wrestled with Laban for 20 years. He's been grabbing and grasping since before he was born. But this is different. This opponent doesn't tire. This opponent doesn't give up. This opponent matches Jacob move for move, hold for hold through the entire night. Jacob, the wrestler, has finally met his match. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint, and he wrestled with him. One touch, that's all it takes. The man reaches out, touches Jacob's hip, and the joint dislocates, just like that, effortlessly. The man could have done this at any moment. He could have ended the fight in the first minute, but he didn't. He let Jacob wrestle all night. He let Jacob struggle and strain and fight with everything he had, and only now, as dawn approaches, does he reveal the disparity between them. This is not an equal contest. This has never been an equal contest. Jacob has been wrestling with someone who could destroy him with a touch. And then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." The man wants to leave. Dawn is coming. Whatever this encounter is, it belongs to the night. The darkness that hid the man's identity is fading. Morning will reveal what midnight concealed. Let me go. But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." This is the moment. This is the turning point of Jacob's entire life. He's wounded. His hip is dislocated. He can barely stand, let alone fight. He has no leverage, no advantage, no scheme that will work against this opponent. He is utterly defeated, and yet he holds on. "I will not let go unless you bless me." What do you do when you've lost? What do you do when you're broken, outmatched, clinging to someone who could crush you? Jacob refuses to let go. He refuses to release his grip. He refuses to walk away with nothing. He has always been the grabber. From birth, he grabbed Esau's heel. He grabbed the birthright. He grabbed the blessing. He grabbed Laban's flocks. Grabbing is what Jacob does. But this grabbing is different. He's not grabbing something that belongs to someone else. He's grabbing for a blessing, and he's asking for it instead of stealing it. For the first time in his life, Jacob admits that he can't take what he needs. He has to receive it. He has to ask. He has to depend on the one who has defeated him. And he said to him, "What is your name?" The question lands with tremendous weight. What is your name? 20 years ago, Jacob's blind father asked the same question: "Who are you, my son?" And Jacob lied, "I am Esau, your firstborn." Now, in the darkness, defeated and wounded, Jacob is asked again, "What is your name? Who are you really?" This time, he tells the truth. And he said, "Jacob, heel grabber, supplanter, deceiver, schemer. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. I've grabbed and schemed and lied my way through life. I stole my brother's blessing. I tricked my blind father. I've spent 60 years being Jacob." The confession is simple. One word, his name, but it's everything. Every sin, every scheme, every shameful moment bundled into 2 syllables: Jacob. And then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Israel. The name means something like "he strives with God" or "God strives." Scholars debate the exact etymology, but the explanation is clear. You have wrestled with God and with men, and you have prevailed. Prevailed, though. Jacob's hip is destroyed. He's been outmatched all night. He's clinging to an opponent who could have killed him with a word. In what sense has he prevailed? Well, he prevailed because he held on. He prevailed because he refused to let go. He prevailed because he asked for the blessing instead of trying to steal it. He prevailed because he finally told the truth about who he was. Jacob wins by losing. He prevails by surrendering. He receives the blessing by admitting he can't take it. And then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." Fair question. You asked mine. What's yours? But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" No answer, just a question in return. Why do you need to know? Isn't it obvious by now? And there he blessed him. The blessing comes without the name. Jacob receives what he asked for, but not what he asked about. He gets the blessing without getting complete clarity. He encounters God without fully comprehending God. This is how divine encounters often work. We wrestle all night and limp away blessed, but still wondering. We meet God and walk away with more questions than answers, but with a new name, a new identity, a new limp. So Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Peniel, face of God. Jacob has seen God face to face in the darkness through the wrestling, and he's alive. In Exodus, God will tell Moses that no one can see his face and live, but Jacob has done it, and yet his life has been delivered. He should be dead. He's not. Grace again. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, and he was limping because of his hip. The sun rises, the night is over. Jacob crosses the river at last, heading toward Esau, heading toward the future, and he limps. Jacob will limp for the rest of his life. Every step will remind him of this night. Every wince of pain will call back the darkness, the wrestling, the touch that broke him, the blessing that remade him. The wound becomes the witness. The limp becomes the testimony. Jacob walks differently now, not because he's stronger, but because he's been broken by God. This is what transformation looks like. It's not a gentle process. It's wrestling. It's struggle. It's a long night of combat with an opponent you can't defeat. And it leaves a mark. Jacob went into that night as a schemer, a grabber, a man who trusted his own cunning above everything else. He came out as Israel, still limping from the encounter, still carrying the wound, but renamed, redefined, reformed by the struggle itself. Here's what lingers from this passage. First, sometimes you have to wrestle. Jacob didn't seek this fight. It found him in the darkness. But once it started, he had to engage. You can't sleepwalk through a divine encounter. You can't remain passive when God grabs hold of you. Sometimes faith means fighting all night. Second, transformation comes through defeat, not victory. Jacob won by losing. He prevailed by being broken. The dislocated hip was the turning point. The moment Jacob realized he couldn't win, but he could hold on. When we finally stop trying to defeat God and start clinging to Him, the blessing comes. Third, new names require old confessions. Before Jacob could become Israel, he had to admit he was Jacob. Before the new identity, the old one had to be spoken aloud. You can't become who God says you are until you confess who you've been. Fourth, blessings leave scars. Jacob walked away blessed and limping. The two go together. The wound was the proof of the encounter. Some blessings cost us something. Some transformations leave permanent marks. The limp is part of the gift. If you're in a long night right now, if you're wrestling with something you can't defeat, struggling with an opponent you can't see, fighting a battle that seems endless, this passage says, hold on. Don't let go. Cling to God even when you're losing. The blessing comes to those who refuse to release their grip. If you've been living under an old name, if schemer or failure or addict or liar has defined you, this passage says new names are possible. But you have to speak the old name first. You have to confess what you've been before you can become what God says you are. And if you're wondering why transformation hurts, why becoming a new person seems to require so much pain, this passage says that's how it works. The hip has to come out of the joint. The old Jacob has to be broken before Israel can emerge. The limp is the proof that the wrestling was real. Jacob entered the night a schemer. He wrestled until dawn. He was wounded, renamed, blessed. He crossed the river limping, and the sun rose on Israel. Next time on Eat This Book, Jacob limps into the morning expecting revenge, that Esau is running toward him. Is it anger or something else entirely? Join me in Genesis 33 as 20 years of fear collapse into a moment neither brother expected. Thanks for reading with me. Until next time, may the Word dwell in you richly.